num num, num num, birdie num num.
When I have understanding of computers, I shall be the supreme being. God isn't interested in technology. He knows nothing of the potential of the microchip or the silicon revolution. Look how he spends his time. 43 species of parrots. Nipples for men.
Don't do that, Jesus Christ! You're gonna get me killed!
Out of here!
Oh, Billy.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
And we are live, Birdie Num Num. And yes, men still have nipples, and we'll find out in probably all timelines of today. Welcome, everybody, to AB Live. Yes, my name is, my throat is fighting against me, but my name is still Miguel Connor, and I am your Pompatus of Gnosis. And yes, and you run to catch up with the sun, but it's sinking, racing around to come up behind you again. The sun is the same in a relative way, but you're older, shorter of breath, and one day closer to death. And that will be our topic tonight. Very excited to have back the Reverend Jonathan Barlow to discuss the gnosis of time travel. Jonathan, thank you very much for coming on, and glad to have you.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me on again, and I'm very glad to be here.
Probably overdue, but time, yes. Time just grabs. Kronos is always eating his children, as always. And yes, and also, too, hope you don't mind to tell the audience that it is your birthday, and happy birthday. Speaking of time, you've made it another cycle.
Yeah, I'm 45 years old now.
Shorter of breath and one day closer to death, as Pink Floyd
Every day,
said.
every day. Years go by too slowly, and the days go by too slowly, and the years go by too fast.
Good point. And with us, too, we've got the timeless Moondog Vance. Vance, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm very excited tonight because for a long time I've been wondering why my phone is such a good time machine. Look down at it, like an hour is gone. So maybe I'll find out why that happens.
Even when you're at work?
Yeah, well, no, I can't look at my phone when I'm at work. That would be against company policy.
Is it? Well,
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm sure doesn't your computer have a time and you're just like, oh my God.
It's not the same.
No,
maybe it's
not.
Facebook, it just sucks you right into it.
Yeah, the
into
algorithm.
A time vortex or something.
Yeah, the algorithm is an evil thing, and Jonathan knows too. He's I feel his research is some of the best out there in the internet, but the algorithms, those Telepath or archons of the internet, don't like many of your videos, Jonathan. Even the less controversial, more data mining. It's like, it's a pity. YouTube has been at war with you for years, right?
No, more or less. I've never monetized my account. So all the ads that appear in my videos are making money for somebody else, but not for me. And I think that's why I'm so downranked. At least that's a valid theory. A good excuse would be that, but also, of course, being shadow banned for ancient political opinions that I posted in videos 10 years ago and so forth.
Yeah, and those videos have done really well. Some of your videos had 40, 60,000 views, nice little documentaries. But yeah, they don't want the truth out. I've had people from experts at online marketing. I've done my own work too. I've had Silicon Valley guys that listen to the show and they look at my show and they go, yep, you're being shadow banned. It's obvious. You should appear on a lot more results doing this and that. So it is what it is, man.
Yeah.
But here we are. All right. Well, very cool. I don't think I have not much housekeeping going on. Yes, for those of you using the private RSS feed for AB Prime, I keep saying it, but we will be changing it tomorrow and the next day. And so please, I'll send a message to everybody to make sure that you know what the new password is. And other than that, yeah, very cool shows. This show, of course, will be available on YouTube afterwards, and also in video form on Rockfin and Odyssey, just in case the algorithms decide to kill us. And of course, in audio form on all podcast providers and all subscriber places, and probably tomorrow or Monday day at the latest. So it will get out. So other than that, yeah, I think that's it. Well, Jonathan, I guess I read your book, saw your YouTube channel, your series, your lectures or mini documentaries, and really spanning. You just no stone unturned. Time definitely flew when I was watching these because they were very good. And what I like too, beyond the scientific and the occult part, is you also do the historical part too. So that's what I wanted to start out with. Is as we mentioned in the pre-chat, we think that time travel is something that modern day physicists and science fiction writers came up with in the 19th century or 18th century, 19 and forward. But isn't the truth that people have been playing with time travel for up to 4,000 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. As a concept, different forms of time travel have been around since at least the Iron Age Vedics in India, and the story of who was it? Kukudmi, who went before Brahma and was at his court for what appeared to be a number of hours and while he was there, but then turned out to be essentially thousands of years on Earth while he was gone, had passed. Also in Adapa, the story of Adapa and the trial of Pazuzu. Adapa was one of the Abgal fish priests of the Anunnaki in Sumer, and one day he was on his boat, and Pazuzu, the southwest wind, knocked him off his boat, and so he cursed Pazuzu, and then Pazuzu took him to court over that and sued him, took him to the court of Anu, the sky god, and while Adapa was there, Enki told him not to eat any of the food or drink any of the beverages that he may be offered because they were poison and he would surely die. But then during his trial, Anu found his case so favorable in his favor that offered him the food and drink of immortality, and Adapa declined. And according to the ancient Sumerian legends, that's why we're mortal now. Both of those are examples of time invariance or time dilation between different time frames, different referential frames of time. Being when Adapa was in the court of Anu, he was there for a certain amount of time, and on Earth, a different amount of time passed in the same way with Kudme when he went before Brahma.
And
those
also,
stories are like 3,500 and 4,000 years old.
And also in the book of Enoch, I think, isn't there a section where Enoch is shown by an angel creation, and there's also some time dilation?
Of course, yeah. In Enoch, which is nowadays scholastically accepted as being only a later written work, and then backdated, backwards attributed to being pre-diluvial, even theoretically before the beginning of Sumer and Vedic civilization in India. But Enoch was basically abducted by aliens, or whatever you would want to describe that experience as being. It's very similar to the modern alien abduction scenarios that we hear about nowadays. But he was basically taken up in a dream by an archangel, shown the calendar and the rotations of the planet and everything like that from a distance above it and beyond it. And then when he came back down, or when he awoke from his dream, so to speak, he was gifted with this enlightenment of having had this vision, and then he prophesized it for a while, and then has an interesting way of passing from the earth himself. Either he died in a fire in a tomb that was buried 9 chambers deep in the earth, or he simply walked with God and God took him and he was not.
Interesting. Yeah, and you could almost say that some of the apocalypses are time travels, because it's a lot of these, God is showing what's going to happen at the end, or several possibilities at least that could happen at the end. So, but I think in our modern times, yeah, you give a lot of examples in your series, and sometimes I forget some of them, like Rip Van Winkle, such a famous story that's time dilation. I never thought, I mean, something I loved as a kid, but these things were being played in pre-colonial times. It's people are just wondering about this, and it reminds me of this quote that I'm putting up here by Augustine, where he said, "What is time? If no one asks me, I know what it is." So it's kind of the old Marshall McLuhan, I don't know who discovered water, but it wasn't fish. So the ancients played with it, but they really didn't know what it was. It was something they were trying to figure out, and science sort of started asking that question. So if somebody comes up to you, or tonight as I'm asking, and I say, "Jonathan, what is time?" What is your answer?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. The concept of time has different meanings in different contexts. So there's the way we experience time as living beings, our personal circadian rhythms, and our so-called temporal lock to our surrounding environment on the planet. So if we go out of that temporal lock by going on a plane, or getting jet lag from going into a different time zone, then all of our circadian rhythms would be thrown out of rhythm. Then there's the mental experiments with time travel that we can do, which are non confined to necessarily even the reality in which we live. The physics of the laws of physics of the universe, and in that context, time would be measurement of the 7th direction of motion. There's height. There are 3 dimensions in space, regular space. There's height, which is up and down, width, which is left and right, and depth, which is front and back. And then all of that together moves in the 7th direction of time in this context, which is just the sum of all universal motion. And of course, the way we experience time as living beings is very limited compared to how the universe would not necessarily experience time, but how the universe exists over time.
No, makes sense. Yeah, it's complicated. It's complicated. We could go back to Augustine's quote and deal with that. And yeah, you also talk in your series about some of time travel movies. What are some of your time favorite ones? I know you mentioned one of mine, which is Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys, which is one of my favorite. And then Looper 2. Looper has become really kind of a cult classic, and I liked it. I like 12 Monkeys because it's more philosophical, and oh my God, it's about a virus that takes over the world. How interesting. But it's, Looper is a fun kind of movie until I found out I just found out today it was directed by Rian Johnson, and it put a bad taste in my mouth.
Right. Yeah, that was back when Rian Johnson was an up-and-coming real big hit in Hollywood. He had won a bunch of awards for Looper. Mm-hmm. And then he went and made Last Jedi, and everybody seems to universally not want to hear more from him.
He might be wanting a time machine to go back and reject that role.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody already said there, a movie, Peerless Loser, and she mentioned a movie that you talk about, Predestination. I haven't seen it.
Oh, really? I just rewatched it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just rewatched it today just for a refresher on the subject of time travel. It's really it's probably one of the top 3, I think, of the ones that I've seen, at least, time travel movies. And it's got to be at least one of the top 10 of all time, in my opinion, time travel stories.
Wow.
I don't know all the time travel stories, of course, but of the ones that I know, it's really phenomenal. It's got a lot of twists and turns and a lot of character development, and deals with a real specific form of a closed time-like curve or a time loop in the form of a self-creating being like the autogenes. You should check it out. I think
I might watch it tonight after our interview. I might do that. Yeah. Hey, Graham Pong is there in the chat. Good to see you, my friend. He's saying Time Cop. Well, for me, I have soft spots for Somewhere in Time. I know it's a love story, but it's just so cute. Time After Time, about Jack the Ripper traveling in time with Malcolm McDowell and David Warner, who just played. Those are some of mine. Vance said Groundhog Day.
Yeah. Groundhog Day.
Ooh, that's a good time travel or eternal return. Good point.
Yeah, it's a loop.
Yeah, it's a time loop. There's time loops, and then there's causality loops. And Groundhog Day is an example of a time loop because it starts over at the same spot every time that he reaches a certain point at the end of the day.
Yeah, I guess good one. Some are others saying, Mark Jefferson, Time Bandits. What are some others? Primer, never
another
heard.
Gilliam one that's kind of creepy.
Yeah, but I think time it's not scientific or logical. It's just there's a plot of the plot's a lot different. Yeah, it's
random.
I love the end where he's just like, "Don't touch it, it's pure evil," and they're just like, "Bing."
humans for you. We do it every time.
Oh, spoiler alert! Spoiler alert for Time Bandits. There, sorry.
And then Sunshine Valerie, Outlander. Yeah, I watched the first. I liked the first season. Then my wife kept watching. I'm like, that's just porn for women. That's what Outlander is. But good show. Interstellar. I think he does talk about that movie too. Of course, Doctor Who. I used to watch it until The Last Doctor, and I don't want to get into the controversy, but the writing just sucks. Dark, I saw Nicole. I saw Dark. I saw the first season, but it moved a little slow for me, so I need to catch up. The Land Before Time. Yeah, sure. Well, anyway, these are some of the movies to get you guys in the mood. So now that we've gotten you in the mood, what do you want to start with? You want to talk about some mental exercises, or how do you want to go about it, Jonathan?
Well, yeah, I think it would be time travel is such a vast and deep topic with a lot of twists and turns in it as well, a lot of paradoxes. So it would probably be best to like ease into it from, ordinary conversational point of view. So I was thinking we could look at some just basic thought experiments for time travel that are arithmetic. They're just math based. They're simple counting. I've done them wrong. That's the only thing. So we may need to check my math as I go along.
Okay.
But we could say to start out, an average passenger jetliner flies at 9,144 meters altitude at around 930 kilometers an hour. And Earth's equatorial rotational velocity is 465.1 meters per second, or 1,674.4 kilometers per hour. So a plane flies around 930 kilometers an hour. Earth rotates around 1,600 or 1,700 kilometers per hour. And it rotates from west to east, as I'm sure we all know that. So if we were to take a plane, flies at 930 kilometers an hour, and fly it from, say, UK, London to New York, the flight time would be about, on average, about 7 hours. And the same is basically true if you're flying from New York to London. It's about 7 hours flight time up in the air anyway. I mean, there's websites will tell you that there's taxi times and you got to wait in the airports and everything like that. So that could be fact. It's about a 7-hour flight. Mm-hmm. The distance between them is 3,256 miles, or 5,240 kilometers. So if a plane flies 930 kilometers an hour over 5,240 kilometers, it would take about 7 hours, in other words, and that's ubiquitous regardless of which direction it's going, east or west. But this is where the time travel comes in terms of time zones. If we're going from UK to New York, from east to west, and we leave at noon, we'll arrive at 11 p.m. The day before, because we'll be arriving at 11 p.m. New York time,
right?
Which, of course, is 5 time zones different from the UK where we left from. So traveling from east to west, we subtract 5 time zones, or 5 hours, from the duration that the trip takes. And in the opposite case, if we fly from New York to the UK and we leave at noon, we'll arrive at a.m. the day after, because, again, of time zones and the Earth's rotation. But again, that's 1 a.m. UK time. So the question then is, what is the difference between the time zone on the planet's surface and the relative or actual time, however one would want, of the experience of somebody on a plane? So going back to having jet lag, when one leaves a time zone and travels west, their circadian rhythms are going to be shortened, and if they leave the time zone and travel to the east, their circadian rhythms are going to be lengthened. And in the same way, we see the length of a flight from UK to New York or New York to UK is about 7 hours either way. If we start going further around the planet, the flight begins to matter more in terms of calculating the difference in time zones. So if we were to fly halfway around the planet, say from New York to its, what do they call that? The antipode point, the opposite point on the surface of the planet in the southern hemisphere would be in Augusta, Australia, or the nearest place to it would be in Augusta, Australia. And if we were to leave at 12 noon from New York and fly directly to Augusta, Australia, it would take, say, about 12 hours or so. But or actually, it would take 21 hours of actual flight time, and it would cross 13 different time zones. So if we left at noon from New York and we wanted to go to the opposite side of the planet, we would arrive at 8 p.m. Australian time on the day that we left. So the actual flight, considering the combination of flight, the subtraction of the time zones, would only amount to 8 hours, even though it would feel like a 21-hour long flight to somebody in the airplane. And likewise, if you wanted to go from Augusta, Australia to its antipode point in St. George, Bermuda, it would take 21 and a half hours. But the flight would take 33 hours in terms of when you would land after taking off. So you would land at 6 p.m. the next day if you took off from Augusta, Australia at 12 noon, flew to St. George, Bermuda. Which all of that is just boring, but it's arithmetic proof for how on a closed surface like the surface of the planet Earth, you can have closed time-like curves or cycles that approach being closed time-like curves because of its being confined to a non-Euclidean space. In a Euclidean space like cause and effect or linear, but in a non-Euclidean space like a sphere, which is convex, or hyperbole, or a saddle shape, which is concave, you can have non-linear cause and effect relationships. So in a sphere, you can have acute angled cause and effect relationships. If you have like a cause at point A, it leads to an effect at point B. But then, the result of point B leads off to point C being reversed along the time axis in a closed time like curve type scenario. But that becomes possible on the surface of a closed geometric shape like here, or a torus. Although torus is associated with the saddle shape or the more open rather than closed geometry.
Yeah. What do you think, Vince? I know, jet lag is a killer. I can tell you that.
It's got something to do with the time conventions. You know what I mean? If everybody measured their time in sidereal time, which is kind of a universal time that's not relative to where you are in the Earth, then everything would just be it just makes sense. Notwithstanding the winds, when you travel one way around the Earth, the headwinds are, the prevailing westerlies, slow your plane down if you travel to the west. But if you travel east, it's faster. I've noticed that on the East Coast all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way I see it.
Of course, and the jet stream's caused by the rotation of the planet as well as the wind moves the surface of it, and the surface moves below the wind.
Yeah. But there is a relativistic effect, though. Anytime you move, Einstein showed us that, a relative reference frame that's stationary with respect to a moving one, that time scales are literally physically different. So therefore, that's a real, very real, but very tiny at our speeds, true time travel.
Yeah.
Even on top of a mountain, right, Jonathan? If you're on top of a mountain, the time is traveling at a different rate than on the bottom.
Exactly. What is it, a cesium clock? The decay rate from counts at a different tempo at the top of a mountain than it does at the bottom of a mountain. It counts slower in the middle of a black hole than it would on the surface of a planet.
So can we say time is a force? I mean, if there's less or more, or it affects you less or more, could we even say that?
I don't think it's considered force, is it, Jonathan? Yeah,
well, in physics, we've talked about it in terms of perception of time, jet lag, and that sort of thing. We've started to talk about it a little bit in terms of the geometry of time. And the physics of time is that it is essentially a force, because it is the measurement of motion, all motion in all directions at once. The sum of all of that, the so-called sum over histories, is the essentially the time dimension itself. So I think they call that I'm not going to be able to remember the name of the scientist that's named after, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, I got something scientific right, which is a great achievement. I know Plotinus actually said that the soul creates time as it falls into earth. In other words, time is just matter in motion. So I suppose the ultimate consciousness, as if it thought something, it created some sort of time. But the ancients always said aeonic time would be different than mortal time, but still it's created by motion of thought, motion of matter, motion of something. So maybe Plotinus has been redeemed in the last 20 years in many ways. He used to be a woo-woo kind of mocked philosopher, and now he's gained a lot of respect.
Yeah.
But any questions from the audience, fans?
Yeah, Oswald Spengler had one. It's not on the definition.
Or am I on mute? Is everybody on mute?
I'm fine. Can you hear me, Jonathan? Yeah.
Yep.
Am I on mute?
No,
nope.
You're not on mute.
Everybody's on mute.
Right? Oh, no. Your speakers. Turn on your speakers.
I can't hear anybody.
I'm okay. Well, you asked me a question.
Can't hear anybody.
Oh, all of a sudden. So, yeah, I've got a couple of questions from Oswald.
Yeah, well, I hope everybody can hear me, because I have lost everything, and I don't feel a cat has ran off or anything.
Oh, no. Headphone became unplugged, but we can't talk to him.
Vance, any questions from the audience? And I'll try to figure myself out.
Okay, while Miguel's doing that, Oswald Spengler, I want to know, Jonathan, do you think the gnosis of time travel can be applied to the cyclical theory of history as espoused by Spengler and Toynbee?
Absolutely, yes. Although I don't know the specifics of the theory as espoused by those particular espousers of it. But a cyclical version of history would essentially be like a corkscrewing spiral, which essentially is the pattern that is formed by the orbit of our planet around the sun over a period of time, the aeons, thousands of years. in lengths of time and the ice ages and so forth. So there's certainly something to be said for the cyclical nature of time being progressive as well as repetitive.
Right. History repeats itself, right?
Exactly. Well, it rhymes. Supposedly, it doesn't necessarily repeat itself exactly, but
Mark
it does.
Twain, right? Yeah.
Repeat with modification.
And then he also wanted to know if you would comment on deja vu. Maybe that's an example of some kind of time travel.
Oh, the actual experience of deja vu. Yeah. One of the things that causes deja vu for me is dreams. I frequently have a snippet of premonitory vision in a dream that then I'm reminded of later on in my waking day, and that gives me the sensation of deja vu. And one has to wonder, like the brain itself, like how is it processing like the probabilities that it would see, like a red apple or, like a black bear running in the night or something. And like that would be in my dream. And then I would see it and I would be like, oh, deja vu.
Well, and really, we're always trying to project into the future, right? When, our minds are trying to anticipate possible dangers or possible rewards. And that brings us to the subject of like the two basic theories of time, which is one timeline is universal, so everybody travels along the same one, and then the multiverse, where there's many, many different timelines. And if you look at science fiction, right, there's some movies that have the multiple timelines, some movies have the one timeline. So like if I'm thinking ahead, my consciousness could be said to be traveling in one possible timeline, right? If I think that like something's going to drop on my head in the next 5 minutes, maybe that's possible in one particular timeline.
Right. Well, according to the many worlds interpretation, that's exactly what they say. That anything is possible in any variant number of n-dimensional possible timelines.
Yeah, I think there's some sort of consistency rule though. Like in my case, something dropping on my head. Well, I don't know. A meteor could strike, I suppose. It'd be very improbable, but
it'd be terrible to put a can of horror on it anyway. So I mean, like I try and keep a positive mental attitude about things falling onto my head from the future.
So therefore, I'll ask a question. Then I guess Miguel can hear us now.
I can hear. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good.
It was very strange. I lost everything. But
this must be a time warp.
Yeah.
As Johnny Rotten sang, I'm in a time warp. I'm in a time warp.
All right.
All right.
Or let's do the time warp again. Yeah. Now, if there was no sentient life in the universe whatsoever, nothing is conscious, nothing is self-conscious, would there be any time? Would time just click away in the universe if there were no observers?
That's like asking if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it. I would say yes. Sound waves would still be sound waves, even if there was not an ear to pick them up. They'd still be the motion of the pressure against the air molecules pushing and causing a form of wind by the sound wave. So in the same sense, I think that there would be motion, and that motion could be considered time, even though there might not be anybody there to perceive that as such.
Wouldn't it be, though, like a giant four-dimensional solid?
Well, that's one of the more interesting modern theories, and that I go along with is, and again, I'm terrible with the names of the scientists who've proposed these things, and they all name them after themselves or whatever. But the idea of having like the 3 dimensions of space, and then surrounding that a 4th dimension of space, but it would be a 4th dimensional space. It would be a tesseract or a torus shape type of concept that we really can't even fathom from within 3-dimensional space. But that shape would be essentially responsible for causing time within 3 space, causing change in motion and entropy. And it would be itself like a halo surrounding the local universe and comprised of 0-point energy or tachyons. It would be essentially what they call hyperspace.
I always wonder, within that whole thing, what's it contained in, right? That whole
Right.
thing that we just described. Then there must be a hyper universe that's all exists in. So that
Exactly, and that's where that theory goes after that, is that if there's a local universe and then hyperspace, then there would be a larger event horizon in a black hole in a larger universe surrounding the local cosmos. And once you get up into what the physics and the geometry and the mathematics of the larger cosmos, the so-called parent cosmos to our own universe, would be like, it becomes extremely abstract extremely quickly.
it's turtles all the way up.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
the ending of Men in Black when everything's in a jewel, or Time Bandits when God just folds the map. A
Right.
mystery after a mystery, man.
Okay, well, we did Oswald's questions, Miguel. So there's a couple of little smaller questions running around here. Grandpa, I almost missed his. Is memory personal time travel into your own past?
It can be. Remote viewing and remote influencing indicates that you may be able to, for example, there's the premise of the tachyonic anti-telephone, the ability to send information back in time by pulsing it at a rate of velocity faster than the speed of light. So, of course, if you had a regular telephone, somebody was standing 10 feet away from it and it rang, because, they called it from 10 feet away, they would know it instantly. But if somebody was standing 10 feet away from an tachyonic anti-telephone, it would ring before they called it. It's a really spooky modern paradox.
Whoa. The good thing, though,
time concept.
The good thing is that when you get the bill, it pays you.
Oh, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Bizarro AT&T.
And they have good customer service if you call them.
Wow,
everything's backwards.
The Time Lords, yeah.
Right.
The Time Lords. And when people ask you about the Mandela effect, is there any sort of time dilation or corruption, or what do you think of the Mandela effect?
Well, the Mandela effect, by definition, is about false memory syndrome. And people being able to convince themselves that something that they remember that's false is actually true by essentially like crowdsourcing their agreement for it. But if we're talking about like the idea that, for example, like CERN, the LHC could be emitting gravity waves from, or even tachyonic radiation without even realizing it at a very small amount, and that could be displacing a certain other amount of energy, etc. Like, that's all interesting theories, but I don't follow it closely enough to be able to confirm or deny the validity of it.
Right. Right. But what about the idea that if time travel is possible, somebody's already figured it out and doing shenanigans across the space-time continuum?
Well, exactly. Like, if time travel can exist, then it ultimately will exist. And if it ultimately will exist, then it already exists. Because the first person to acquire a time-traveling machine would essentially be able to go anywhere and, to some limited extent, do anything that they wanted while they were there, thus wreaking havoc in what we would consider the mainstream timeline. It would cause all sorts of causality paradoxes if they were to do it recklessly. So that's where ethics comes in with time travel. That's where we have to ask the question, is time travel a good thing in the first place? And that depends on one's point of view entirely. Life grows on planets that are gravity wells. They're caught inside larger gravity wells, spiral galaxies being pulled into black holes. So from the point of view of life, we need order out of chaos. We need negentropy. We need gravity. And the result of that is a more closed geometric surface, a more spherical non-Euclidean space, and a
non-Euclidean space. Isn't that what Lovecraft likes to say? Really, yeah, or whatever, is non-Euclidean space. It's Lovecraft's great idea to describe these places that'll drive you crazy, huh?
Right.
But if go ahead, Vance.
Yeah, curved space,
Yeah, it's just kind of
where the shortest distance between 2 points isn't necessarily a straight line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you're talking about what? The grandfather's paradox, the old if I go back in time and I kill my grandfather, what will happen? Or maybe can you explain to the audience about that and the different connotations?
Sure. Paradoxes are more or less the primary physical laws of the realm of time travel, hyperspace, whatever you would want to call that, temporal dimension that includes the seventh direction of motion in space as half of its scalar. Sorry, what was the question again? This wandered off in my mind. Oh, the grandfather paradox, of course. Paradoxes are the laws of physics for time travel. They replace the laws of logic. So the grandfather paradox is the one that states if you were to go back in time, you could kill your own grandfather, thus preventing yourself from having been born and preventing yourself from being able to go back in time to kill your own grandfather. So it creates the logical conundrum of if X, then Y, but then if Y, not X.
Exactly. What are the different permutations, or could it even happen? I mean, what do you mean? Logic is replaced by physics. So if there's no logic, then what happens? I'm trying to get my mind around this, or should I even not waste my time getting my mind around it?
Well, I think of it, the easiest way for me to visualize it is temporal cartography. So like a map, and then using that map, you could apply it to more physical situations later. But the map itself is easy enough to visualize inside the mind, geometrically and topologically. So like if you were to go back in time and kill your grandfather, thus preventing yourself from being able to go back in time, you would create a closed time-like curve. A closed time-like curve in 4 spatial dimensions causes gravity in 3 spatial dimensions that causes change over time. It causes entropy to occur in the confines of the local universe. The hyperspace shape or torus or sphere or whatever the hyper surrounding the local universe is itself a closed time-like curve, and is itself self-referential, it's self-isomorphic, self-connecting.
Okay. I'll just leave it at that. I'm thinking there's a famous and award-winning short story where they discover a time travel machine and they try to, of course, they try to kill Hitler, and they go back in time and they keep killing Hitler, and every time they come back, it hasn't changed. History is the same, conventional history.
Right.
Let's not get into any conspiracies, everybody, but it's the same history, right? And then they go back, well, we'll kill him when he's a kid, and nothing. And we go back, we kill him when he's an adult, when he's an artist drawing outside, and nothing works. And they just, at the end, these scientists just give up. They say it's already been set.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with that particular movie, or the premise is common. We're talking about the chronological protection conjecture of Stephen Hawking that basically says if any closed time-like curve event were to occur, the effect of it would be distributed so as to conserve the violation of the second principle of thermodynamics, the principle of entropy. So if X amount of energy is created, then somewhere else Y amount of matter has to be destroyed, or Y amount of energy has to be reformed into matter, or something like that.
Yeah, I was just thinking that the conservation of energy is violated by any kind of time travel, forward or backwards, right? Because here I am of a certain amount of mass. If I all of a sudden disappear out of this time and reappear 20 years ago, then there's like missing energy and
exactly.
Mass.
Exactly. You'd have to create some sort of
ballast or something, replacement.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have to have some.
Yeah, but where would it come from, right?
Proxy.
You know, you got the whole universe. You know, you can't balance the books.
But if you travel back in time, does that mean that
some future matter?
So the universe collapse events goes back in time to, or what would happen?
Well, the theory is it would either create an alternate parallel dimensional timeline.
We're getting Donnie Darko
from the mainstream timeline, and then terminate sooner than the mainstream timeline as it bifurcates. But
of course, it would be discontinuous energy-wise, right? The energy was all of a sudden, you know, that timeline would be discontinuous energy-wise.
Well, when we're talking about a timeline, we're talking about something the size of an entire cosmos as well.
Yeah.
So, like to say that something like a timeline can just blink out of existence or come to an end when one person leaves it and then creates an alternative parallel dimension timeline, and then they can't return that timeline. It seems a little wasteful, but it's likely that if somebody were to be transported out from, in the many worlds interpretation at least, if somebody were to be transported out of one dimensional timeline and put into Loki, and Kang, put into a parallel dimensional universe, that it would not only have to displace the amount of mass that he would take up from the universe that he was getting, like Eureka, you know, when they get it, who was it? The Greek philosopher who discovered the displacement.
Water.
Yeah.
I forgot his name, but yeah, Eureka.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Anyway.
So I think Doctor Who must be playing that, because the whole idea of Doctor Who, it's kind of, they try to play it both ways. In Doctor Who, big events have an imprint on the timeline, like World War II or 9/11. Yeah. But then people like Vance Miguel or Jonathan who get whacked or something, it's no big deal. So it can happen. That's how you can have people killed and fall in love. And Queen Elizabeth can have sex with a guy you meet time travel, something like that. But big events like the Spanish Armada could never change. But Queen Elizabeth having a fling with Vance could be a thing. So.
Right. And of course, in the many worlds interpretation, that's already happened. It's happening right now. Vance.
Wow.
How was it, Vance? Was she beautiful?
No, I couldn't tell. There's too many corgi dogs running around me.
you were sneaking off to do alchemy with John D. That's what you wanted to do.
The first Queen Elizabeth. Oh, I thought you meant the one we just lost. Yeah.
You know, yeah, I mean the first. Sorry, time travel.
Oh yeah.
No, I was thinking of.
Of course, they're really the same
wink,
Queen
nudge,
Elizabeth.
nudge, time travel joke. Time travel humor is the best.
Yes, there's so much potential, so much potential. So, yeah, the other question I had for you, unless does the audience have a question, Vance?
Let's see. I've been having so much fun. I've been trying to looking back. I don't think so. Anybody? Oh, Queen Elizabeth was a druid. Oh, oh God, I'm not going to repeat that.
Should I put it up? No.
No.
I won't put it up on the screen. Okay.
No, because I don't understand it yet. No, I don't see any. I don't see any. Anybody have a question, please, that I missed, please say so in the chat.
The question I had too, there's also a section in your lecture, Jonathan, about time travel, and mind control.
Right.
Could you share that with the audience? Of course, to me, that was very titillating, if you would.
Mind control is an extremely dangerous topic, so I'm going to try and shy away from describing it as much as I can.
Just send me the instructions in an email. That's all you have to do. No, just kidding.
Well, mind control is fine when you do it to yourself. If you're doing it to somebody else, then it becomes dangerous. And if it's voluntary, then it can be a teacher-student relationship, and it can be theoretically beneficial to some extent. But
or therapy, hypnotherapy, meditation, kind of, yeah.
Of course, and yeah, if you're doing it to yourself, it's acceptable. It's like binaural beats or whatever you want to use to practice. But one of the aspects of time travel being tied to the circadian rhythms of the body of an individual, as well as to the the time zone or their temporal lock to the surrounding environment around them, is that what were we talking about?
Are you with us? We were talking mind control.
Mind control. There you go.
CERN is getting to you. They're radiating
waves.
icons into your brain to stop you from getting. Yes. Mind control and time travel.
Sorry. So yeah, if one is able to use mind control, so to speak, over their own mind, metaprogram their own consciousness, then one can regulate their own circadian rhythms, and in this way have some kind of at least theoretical influence on the rhythms of the natural environmental surroundings around a person. Which, of course, is like almost superstition of transference means of looking at the subjectivity of how we perceive time. So, like, if I'm having fun, then time's going to fly. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not having fun, then time's just going to drag and it's going to be boring. But theoretically, if I were to use mind control and force myself to have fun, then I could force time to move faster from my own perspective, or at least trick myself into thinking that it was doing so. And likewise, the opposite.
And what are, for the audience, the circadian rhythms? What's that exactly, for those who might not know?
Oh, that's like the autonomic biological functionary systems of the body, like the biome, the menstrual cycle, the hippocampus that determines our when we go to sleep and when we want to be awake, for how long. That's the main one, is sleep-wake cycles that determines our circadian biological rhythm, but also the rate at which we mature as a physical body, the rate that our hair grows, or the rate our fingernails grow. All of this is essentially based on a person's unique individual circadian rhythms.
And those, what are some? Are there ways to keep it healthy? Or what I want to ask you, are there ways to make time go the way you need it to go? Because, like you said, if time goes too slow when you don't want it, it's pretty brutal. Sitting at an airport lounge or at work or something like that, but it's also when you're having fun, it's like, shit, I want time to go a little bit slower. Are there ways to play with that and improve it, optimize it, or is just this the human condition?
No, certainly there's ways to change the perception and the way we experience time. The question then is, does that have an effect on actual physical motion as a tempo, as a measurement of time in the universe outside of us? Some people believe that's a permeable membrane, that you can have an effect from the inside of your psyche on the surrounding environment outside yourself, particularly along a time axis, geometrically speaking. I think it would be easier to cause a closed time-like curve, for example, than it would be to escape one.
Yeah, that makes sense. And are there any exercises you do, or what, meditation? I mean, what can you do to sort of...
Well, one interpretation of Aleister Crowley's interpretation of the Abramelin working, finding one's holy guardian angel, or their higher self, their super ego, or their higher consciousness. I like to think of that also as extending along the time dimension to where it would be myself in a better future that I would want to lead me and to guide me. So the problem then becomes not just my physical self in a near future, but I want to be guided towards the ultimate good, or the best future potential timeline that can exist.
I like that a lot. Yeah. I think somebody also put something, yeah. Enjoy what you do. What do you think, Vance? Any other questions are from you?
Yeah, here's a question I think will lead into an interesting place. Grandpa, long ago, in the chat room timeline, asked, is the universe itself an observer? And I have an observation on that, but I'll let Jonathan speak to it first.
Well, there's areas or regions in the universe that exhibit closed geometric properties, and regions that exhibit open geometric properties, and regions that exhibit flat geometric properties. So it's possible that the waveform collapse caused by interference between a photon and an electron, for example, that causes the electron cloud to collapse from superposition into a singular electrical charge as the electron, is only happening universally, but is also shoot, I've lost my train of consciousness again.
Collapsing the wave function you were talking about.
Collapsing the wave function. Okay.
Yeah.
CERN,
yeah.
damn you, CERN.
CERN. It's got to be 5 minutes now. It's 3 minutes. It's going to be 2 minutes. But yeah, like in different places in space and time, the wave function would be more collapsed, or in different places in space and time, it would be less collapsed. So I don't think there's absolutely a universally ubiquitous observer principle that's happening, universally across all of space-time.
Yeah, I agree. And I have a simple proof that I'm going to run by. Maybe it's wrong, but it's my hypothesis. In order to be an observer, you must have a model of the universe you're observing. because that's the definition of observer. Somebody that something that perceives certain bunch of information and then models it within themselves.
Right.
And if you take that definition of an observer, the universe, if the universe itself was an observer, it can't observe itself, because then the universe would have to contain a complete model of itself. And the universe can't contain. Yeah, because if the universe contained a complete model of itself, it would be infinite recursion, because that model would have to have
exactly.
It would
It
just
wouldn't be
go
able
on
to hold
forever.
it wouldn't be able to hold the model itself, because it would be at a 1-to-1 scale with itself. It would be I can't even imagine that. It would be like the mirror dimension in Doctor Strange, I guess. It's like completely crushing itself. Like every layer of space and time would just be collapsing in on itself.
However, in Gnostic lore, the God above God is like totally beyond infinite, right? He's the infinite of the infinite. You know, the Hilbert set and the Hilbert set of the Hilbert set, and it's like totally infinite. So you could say that perhaps that could be an observer of itself, because it does contain it. It's unimaginable, not modelable. We can't model it with our mathematics, but so perhaps the God above God could be the ultimate observer of itself, and maybe that's what we all are.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
And Joe Moms also asked, is light traveling basically time? So Joe Moms wants to know if traveling light is equivalent to time.
Yes. At the speed of light, which is 1 Planck distance per 1 Planck time, a very small amount of space over a very small amount of time. Photon goes across that. At that rate, at that speed, that's essentially the fastest speed within the local universe, is light speed of a photon in a vacuum, or 1 Planck distance per 1 Planck time. But according to Einstein's equations, of course, E equals mc squared, beyond c, in between the speed of light and c squared, the speed of light squared, obviously a faster rate, there would be 0 point energy, or non matter energy space-time. So again, like within the local universe, time is measured by c, the speed of light, and then within hyperspace beyond the local universe, it's measured between c and c squared.
And what do you think of the movie Interstellar? Does that help with a lot of the time travel issues, or folding time and black holes and all that? Or
it's interesting. I don't. The only thing I disagree with about it is that if you were to be on a ship with a robot and you went into a black hole, I'm pretty sure you would die. But he doesn't die, and a spoiler alert, doesn't die, and he survives inside the black hole, and then he uses extreme time dilation in order to find a way to send a message through time, massive spoiler warning, to his daughter, and then she eventually comes and finds a way to rescue him.
Mm-hmm.
But that particular part of the story is romanticized, I would think. If a person, a ship with a robot, were to get close enough to a black hole that they were entering into it, their trajectory was inescapable. Their physical form would be completely obliterated. They would just be condensed down like a styrofoam cup in a deep pressure underwater, sort of experiment. Just shrivel up, and then smaller and smaller until it became nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's a black hole for you. And
Yep.
the question in your series, in your lectures, you do talk about a UFO ship. You even give a schematic of a ship that could travel through time, right? Could you give us a brief?
Theoretically.
Yeah, give us a summary of what would happen with this good ship. It would have space toilets, at least. I hope. I don't know. A Starbucks.
It would have
food.
It
still
has pods
bad.
in which we could sleep, and then we wake up and then we eat the crickets.
Yeah, of course.
No, like the ship would hold 6 people, or beings. The dimensions of it, the exact height and width and depth, etc. I never really measured specifically. So in theory, you could have short little gray aliens piloting it. You could have adult height, 6 foot tall people piloting it, whatever. Anyway, crew of 6 people, 3 of them are in sleeping pods while the other 3 are in the cockpit manning the helm, so to speak. The helm itself is tube torus, an empty donut shape tube, just connects to itself in a ring. Inside of that, there's a sphere that contains a geode, and then I guess you would call that the engine part of it. The engine part of it sits around and outside of the cockpit. So when the geode comes around in the tube torus, it shifts the center of gravity of the craft. That's essentially the engine motion of it, because it can, from causing it to be destabilized, it can cause friction, which can then create an electrical charge, a spark, that can then power the thing. Theoretically. But the other part would be tachyonic thrusters, which take in 0-point energy or hyperspace, the luminiferous ether, the microwave background radiation, whatever one would want to call it, the deep space energy, in one side, and spit it out the other side at a faster rate than they're taking it in. And then that would be the method of propulsion through outer space, as well as theoretically able to warp, localized time, the localized time dimension. It's a shame John Teeter, do you guys know who he is?
Yep, the time traveler guy.
Oh, word. Yeah. There's a whole host of information to be delved into with John Teeter, the time traveler, and the technology he used for his supposed time machine.
Yeah, Art Bell tried to get a blueprint out of him, didn't he? Maybe he did.
There is a blueprint of it online, but it's not complete. Like, it's a scan of an image from the manual. That it's an exploded diagram that's labels and then numbers, but then it doesn't have the complete key or whatever for this number means this object or this part.
I had a theory when I was a kid about how flying saucers worked, and I think it's still an interesting concept, which is no wavefront can travel faster than the speed of light, according to Einstein, the universe, right? However, I had the idea that a circular motion was involved, and what we would do is create a circular wavefront that traveled faster than the speed of light by having a timer in the middle that would send the pulses out to the periphery of the circular craft in such a way, and those pulses are limited by the speed of light, but still you could fake the wavefront be changing faster than the speed of light by sending the pulses in the right order.
One of the components of the UFO craft that I designed the schematics for is the outer hull, which would consist of something equivalent to modern fiber optic cables, but it's a flux capacitor. Yeah. It's trefoil shaped, so it's shaped like a triangle. It's got the whole triangle motif going on.
Yeah, just like the flux capacitor in the movie, right?
Exactly. But the outside of the hull would be fiber optic cable that was curled up and then into a mesh. Then you could run an electrical charge through that fiber optic cable that could then speed up to near relativistic speeds and theoretically faster. And this in particular, pardon me, this in particular is a good example of the same thing that would happen with the geode sphere inside of the tube tores. Eventually it would catch up to itself. It would be spinning around so fast that it would rear end itself from behind, and at that point it would push itself into faster than light territory.
That sounds related to what I just described. There's some confluence between those two things.
Yeah, the only difference is the pulse coming from the center into the surrounding thing. Both of them are similar to the Large Hadron Collider or any kind of cyclotron, because they basically just use magnets in a tube to send a particle of energy around, or particle of energy, quanta.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting stuff. I have a couple questions, kind of on a side note, but I love picking your brain, Jonathan, because you're such a polymath in many things, and you always have a good perspective. Number one, what do you think of the simulation theory? You can be as brief and long as you want.
Sure. Well, the simulation theory is a modern computational science version of the same concept that the Gnostics fought against as the demiurge. Right. The cosmos being an artificial reality that was created by a non-beneficial and potentially harmful mad scientist type deity. And the only difference being nowadays that the terminology is different. So we consider everything to be a simulation through computer programming. But really, ultimately, it's the same as saying that the universe is a degenerated, fallen, or fragmented form of an ideal or more perfect or more harmonic format that would then be the higher reality, and then the reality that we live in would be the lesser reality. I mean, I'm not sure, like, if there is a higher reality, I don't know what it would be. I think it would have to be ineffable from our point of view within the lower reality. So if we were in a simulation, I think it would have something similar to the chronological protection conjecture that would serve to keep us from ever being able to find out.
So it wouldn't be like Elon Musk on his keyboard who's created us and is just doing it as a joke, and 7 billion NPCs of himself or something.
Well, I think it's even more Machiavellian than that. Elon Musk would just be like the architect within a matrix designed by a larger architect, and by enslaving other people within his sub-matrix, he would be trying to please the greater architect. But there's no way to make sure, that would work. The greater architect of the larger matrix could just smite him for no reason at any time.
Right. But you go ahead, Vince, if you wanted to say something.
Yeah, one way we might be able to tell if we're in a simulation is not if the simulation's working, but if the simulation breaks somewhere. Like say there was a patch of memory that went bad, then you would literally see something weird happen.
A glitch in the matrix.
Yeah, discontinuous. Right. The laws of the universe don't hold for a second, because they weren't being maintained. So I think that's what the Matrix was getting at, where like the cat was walking around and all of a sudden, burp, the
Deja
cat.
vu.
Yeah, he there was a little local, glitch, but that might.
Have you guys
tweak
have
it.
either have
Go
either of you
ahead.
guys heard of the back rooms?
Oh yeah, the Backrooms game, the game.
Yeah.
I've played a couple
Yeah,
of different versions of that.
Yeah, the first time I saw it was a video that was done first person, and they clipped, or I think that's the proper term, they clipped out of normal reality into this subtext reality. This I don't know how to describe it. It's just hallway after hallway of empty space, and it's terrifying. But like, yeah. Like that,
Well,
that
there's
kind of
another
a glitch
game
in the
that
Matrix.
Yeah, there's a game called oh gosh. For some reason, when I'm talking to people, I can't remember certain things. There's one particular game that I play that I was trying to climb up a mountain in this game, and all of a sudden I clipped through, and I wound up in like a cube thing with a grid.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the Stanley Parable has the same kind of thing, deliberately. But it's a glitch in the game, and you fall into it, and you're out of the reality, and you see how it's all built, and you're like in this, like the holodeck and the Star Trek, how it's all just a bunch of grids.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it was literally like that, and it was darn hard to get out. In fact, I had to go back and restart the game at a certain point to get out of it.
Of course, yeah.
It's like
reboot
purgatory.
the whole thing.
Right. Oh boy.
But do you see scientifically or mathematically, do you see it's possible that the simulation reality could be true, or do you think it's being oversold?
Well, the question I always have with the simulation theory or the fallen degenerate material realm theory is that what does the higher dimension look like? If this isn't reality that we're looking at, then what is reality?
Where Vans was stuck. A terrible place.
Well, what I always
exactly.
think
If you just clip through into the void.
Yeah, like we can only see a certain angular distance, right? Our field of view because of our eyes. Right. But I always wondered, what would it be like experientially to see 360 degrees? We can't imagine it.
It'd be mind-boggling.
Right. So, Jonathan, what you're saying is like the whole reality might be like that. It might be the basis of experience might have totally different what's the philosophical term, qualia.
Yeah, well, if you're thinking in terms of your mind's eye as opposed to your physical eyes, it's possible to visualize in 360 degrees. It actually helps, not only increases out-of-body experience, focus. That was a funny one. Stumbled over that word. But it also helps with creative visualization in general.
Okay.
You've never been able to do that.
What's that?
I have, as we're getting closer to the end, I had another one just to indulge me too. Have you heard of the Tartaria conspiracy or theory? Have you gone down that rabbit hole?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Briefly, not enough to be able to discuss it in any detail or depth.
Or have a stance, yeah.
I think that's another one of those jokes from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, where they describe day for night as just a conspiracy of cartographers. The map makers are all liars.
Yeah. And the map is not the territory at the end of the day, as the old saying goes.
No, yeah.
So.
Yeah. Who can you trust on?
Yeah, my summary of the Tartarian theory: Russians invented reality.
Wouldn't be surprised.
I'm sure Vladimir Putin would agree with you.
Oh yeah.
1,000%.
Now he's trying to destroy reality. We create, we destroy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not if those nukes are fake. I know I keep going back to that conspiracy.
Oh, I hope they are.
But it would ruin so many good movies like Doctor Strangelove and Twin Peaks.
It would ruin a lot of things like living on Earth.
Yeah, if they're real, and you bump,
Yeah.
So, awesome. Well, before we go, I wanted to show the audience, and then if you have any last question, Vance, from the audience, but I wanted to show Jonathan's YouTube channel. It will be on the show notes, but so that people can take a look. Here's that share screen. It's so slow, and here it is. And we just scratched the surface, but here is his channel where he talks about time travel. It's a series of great lectures, and he goes very deep and hits there's the schematics, all that, the history of time travel, where he talks a lot about people who have been lost in time throughout history and what they thought of time and time dilation. And definitely check out his channel. It is a akashic record of so many great videos. He likes his country drives, but there's so many, from Atlantis to religions, Pythagoras, whatever you want. He's got some incredible videos. He's got some great mini documentaries, Atlantis, whatever you want, you've got it. So I would definitely check out. And do you have a website, Jonathan?
No, I have a couple, but they're more or less defunct. I haven't really been able to upload to them in years.
So people should go to your YouTube channel if they want.
Yeah, that's the best way to find me nowadays is social media and
Facebook.
The best resource is YouTube and Google Drive. I'm actually hosting all of my ebooks on Google Drive right now. So if you wanted to download 101 ebooks that I've written, that's all free on Google Drive. So.
Yeah, reach out to Jonathan. His books are great. Again, just like his channel, it's a treasure trove of all things esoterica, scientific. It's just good stuff. Any last question from the audience or yourself, fans, before we run out of time?
Yeah, I got a couple here. I'm gonna cherry pick the one I think is good. Is time travel and predictions related? And my form of it is prophecy, a form of time travel of consciousness into the future. And he points out, this is from JMU, the Simpsons show, makes predictions all the time.
Right.
You've seen that happen. Well, so what do you think about that with respect to time travel?
Well, once we start talking about clairvoyance, there's prediction, there's prophecy, and then there's premonition. So a prediction is you use technology to make an informed prediction about the future of reality, statistics, probability. I Ching was done as a means of divination, but it was still a rigorous mathematically and defined system. So it's essentially a machine for predicting the future. So that's one form
extrapolation.
Of,
yeah,
exactly. That's one form of prediction of the future. And then there's also premonition, which would be interpreting omens, seeing like doing auguries on bird guts or whatever, and trying to study migratory flight patterns of birds and herds of animals in the wild, and dowsing or even things like that, to be able to make accurate predictions about future climatological events mainly. And then last is essentially prophecy, or having a vision. Like Enoch in his dream, or Muhammad when the archangel visited him. And that essentially is similarly clipping out of reality. It's like you just fall into this alternate reality in which everything is understandable from outside of the position that you're usually used to looking at it from.
Makes perfect sense, and thanks for that.
Okay.
Well, I think I think we better wrap it up. Great questions from the audience in the chat. Great comments and discussions. Very happy you're here. I really appreciate your company. Yeah, please support the show. Support Jonathan. Support all. Yes, CERN is getting to me too. Support all alternative podcasts and researchers because we're the ones who are lifting the veil to at least more choices and more rabbit holes you can go down to find things that make life better for you and sharpen your mind and expand your consciousness. So, but thank you again. And Vance, first, thanks for keeping us company as always.
Oh, it's great, but where did the time go?
Yeah, once the sands of time have gone through the hourglass, where do they end up?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, too bad this interview isn't going to be on TikTok, huh?
Yeah, then it would be teeny tiny little snippets each grain.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Jonathan, somebody clocks me.
Oh no, he did. He went there.
The ultimate time travel joke.
Yeah. Seeing the stars. Well, Jonathan, really appreciate you being here. Hopefully we'll have you on sooner rather than later. Yeah, and as always, enjoyed your talks, enjoy your research, and enjoy everything you're doing. And yes, even though we heard a lot of crickets, this was far from boring.
Yeah, sorry for train wrecking a few times on you guys. I just been having more problems lately with my mind just wandering off into nothingness. I should probably find some way to work on that.
That's called aging. Yes, that's time right there. Perfect. I'm the same way too, and I've been trying all this stuff from lion's mane to other things, but there is no cure.
Yeah.
You just got to make time to do it, Jonathan.
Yeah. It's my problem is memory, but I keep forgetting to do anything about it.
The paradox. Well, at least you're still creating and researching, and that's all that matters. You'll figure it out. Sure, we'll all be that meme with Grandpa Simpson, old man screaming at the clouds before it's over, old man screaming at the clock before it's over. But what are you gonna do? It's,
live it out.
Yeah. Well, we're at the end. Again, thank you for our guests. Thank you to Vance. Thank you for the audience. Great shows. We will have the audio and video right after this. And next week show, speaking of time dilation, we'll have a show on Twin Peaks. And then our friends from Dockside Media will come on another AB Live to talk about their new UFO documentary, which has a few new angles. And yes, as somebody said, I am going to watch Predestination, hopefully tonight if I have time, but I will. That's the next on my queue. Last night I had the mistake of going and watching the Hellraiser reboot or remake. Sucked. Don't go there. I don't think Clive Barker was even. I thought he was associated with him, but I didn't see him on the credits. It was just another soulless reboot, and I don't know. Now I guess Pinhead is now a woman. I don't know. That's all I have to say. It was just a very lackluster movie. So it's like, does anybody have any? Do you writers today have any concept of philosophy, metaphysics, or mythology? Just put a little bit of history or something. Don't just make it a slasher movie.
Yeah, it's very unoriginal. A lot of the writing and ideas that are coming out of Hollywood and New York right now.
Yeah. Don't waste your time with the new Hellraiser movie unless you just want gore. Then go ahead. Yeah. That's it. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for being here, and as I always say, thanks for being yourself, your true self, here in the desert of the real. And have a good rest of your weekend, and write your own gospel and live your own myth. Take care, everybody.